The X-Men are overrated, and their constant retirements prove it. Think about it. Wolverine goes from claw slashing to limo driving, only to be dragged back in. We're counting down the top 10 X-Men who tried to escape the superhero life. From Beast's shady science to Jean Grey's Phoenix trauma, Rogue's identity crisis, and even Cyclops' infamous family drama. They may try to leave the X-Men, but can any mutant truly escape their destiny? Let's find out. Coming in at number 10, Hank McCoy, the brilliant scientist and agile mutant known as Beast, took a leave of absence from the X-Men, though his reasons were different from those of his teammates. After graduating from Xavier's school, Beast pursued a career in genetic research, driven by his insatiable curiosity and his desire to understand the very nature of mutation. He sought to use his intellect to improve the lives of mutants, but his thirst for knowledge, his desire to push the boundaries of science, would eventually lead him down a darker path, one that would bring him back to the X-Men in a very different capacity. Beast's story serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the noblest intentions can be corrupted by ambition and the pursuit of knowledge without ethical boundaries. At number 9, Rogue, the Southern Belle with the power to absorb the powers, memories, and even personalities of others through touch, has also sought refuge from the X-Men. Her power, while formidable, is also a curse. After a traumatic experience where she permanently absorbed Ms. Marvel's powers and memories, Rogue was left adrift, struggling with her own identity and her place within the team. She questioned whether she could ever have a normal life, a normal relationship, free from the fear of accidentally hurting someone she cared about. But Rogue's story is not one of despair. It's a story of resilience. She found support and understanding within the X-Men, particularly from Gambit, and with the help of her fellow mutants and through rigorous training and self-discovery, Rogue eventually learned to control her powers, to embrace her unique abilities, and to forge her own identity as a hero. Taking the number 8 spot, Jean Grey, the powerful telepath and telekinetic whose connection to the Phoenix Force has defined much of her life, has had her own complex relationship with retirement. After sacrificing herself to save the universe from the destructive power of the Dark Phoenix, Jean was eventually resurrected, but the trauma of her experiences, the sheer terror of losing control to the Phoenix's immense power, left deep scars. She sought a life away from the constant battles and the ever-present threat of the Phoenix Force, a life where she could simply be Jean Grey, not a cosmic entity or a superhero. She even retired her codename Marvel Girl, choosing to embrace her own identity, separate from the expectations and burdens that came with being a member of the X-Men. Jean's connection to the Phoenix Force is a powerful metaphor for the burdens of great power and the struggle for control. Flying in at number 7, Archangel, Warren Worthington III, the high-flying mutant with majestic feathered wings, endured a horrific transformation into Archangel, Apocalypse's horseman of death. This traumatic experience left him scarred, both physically and mentally, forcing him to battle his inner darkness as he struggled to reconcile his two personas, the benevolent angel and the ruthless Archangel. His retirement was a period of intense self-reflection and a desperate attempt to regain control of his life. The duality of his nature, the constant struggle between his inherent goodness and the darkness imposed upon him, makes Archangel's journey one of the most compelling in X-Men history, securing the number 6 position, Colossus. Pyotr Rasputin, the gentle giant with the power to transform his body into organic steel, was a stalwart member of the X-Men for many years, but he also experienced profound loss and betrayal, particularly during the era of the Legacy Virus, a deadly disease that targeted mutants. The death of his sister Ileana from the virus deeply affected him, leading him to question his role as a hero and to seek solace in a life away from the constant fighting. Colossus's retirement was a period of mourning, a time for him to grapple with the immense losses he'd suffered and to try to find meaning in a world that seemed determined to take everything from him. Coming in at number 5, Cyclops, Scott Summers. Cyclops, the steadfast leader of the X-Men. Cyclops' relationship with retirement is complicated, to say the least. After the devastating events of the Dark Phoenix saga, a heartbroken Cyclops retired to Alaska, seeking solace and a new beginning. He found love again with Madeline Pryor, and they started a family together. But the world of the X-Men is rarely peaceful. When Jean was revealed to be alive, Cyclops made a controversial decision. He abandoned his wife and newborn child to rejoin the X-Men, drawn back to the life he thought he'd left behind. He later joined X-Factor. This moment highlights a recurring theme in Cyclops' life: the difficult choices he's forced to make as a leader, choices that often come at a high personal cost. Blasting into number 4, Gambit. Remy LeBeau, the charming Cajun thief with the ability to charge objects with explosive kinetic energy, has always been a complex character, walking a fine line between hero and rogue. He even served as Death, one of Apocalypse's horsemen, for a time, a period that forced him to confront his own inner darkness and the destructive potential of his powers. His departures from the X-Men were often driven by his own internal conflicts and his struggle to reconcile his past with his desire to be a hero. Gambit's story is a reminder that even the most charismatic individuals can harbor deep secrets and struggle with their own morality. Phasing in at number 3, Kate Pryde, the phasing mutant whose ability to walk through walls is just one facet of her incredible journey. From the bright-eyed innocent Kitty Pryde to the seasoned battle-hardened Shadowcat and then Captain Kate Pryde, she's been a mainstay of the X-Men for over 40 years. But even Kate had her reasons for stepping away from the team. The Krakoan era was a period of intense moral ambiguity and difficult choices for the X-Men, and Kate was right in the middle of it. She was forced to make decisions that went against her very nature, even resorting to killing in order to protect her people. This trauma took a heavy toll. She longed for the simpler times, the youthful optimism and joy she felt before the weight of leadership and the darkness of war became too heavy a burden to bear. But like a moth to a flame, Kate couldn't stay away from the fight for mutant survival forever. With the fall of Krakoa and the rise of new threats, she's returned to protect her people, this time as a mentor to a new generation of heroes. But her time away wasn't spent idle. In a surprising move, Kate joined the Guardians of the Galaxy and even took on the mantle of Star-Lord, just missing the top spot. At number 2, Cable. Nathan Summers, the time-traveling soldier from a dystopian future, dedicated his life to preventing the horrors he'd witnessed from ever coming to pass. He battled his evil clone, Strife, across time, a conflict that consumed him for years. His retirements were often brief interludes between missions, a chance to regroup and prepare for the next battle in his never-ending war against the forces that threatened to destroy the future. Cable's entire existence is a testament to the enduring struggle against fate and the sacrifices required to protect the future. He is a soldier out of time, a man burdened by the knowledge of what could be, forever fighting to change it. And finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, the number 1 retired X-Man is Wolverine. Logan, the best there is at what he does, and what he does isn't very nice. This gruff, ageless Canadian with adamantium claws and a healing factor that just won't quit is practically the poster child for the tormented X-Man. After decades of fighting alongside the X-Men, experiencing more loss and bloodshed than any one person should have to endure, even Wolverine needed a break. The physical toll was immense. Hugh Jackman, who brilliantly portrayed Wolverine in the X-Men movies, even admitted that the physicality of the role was hurting him. But Wolverine's retirement wasn't just about physical exhaustion. It was about the emotional and psychological burden of being a perpetual soldier in a seemingly endless war. He was tired of the cycle of violence, the constant rebuilding and reboots that the X-Men seemed to be trapped in. In the film Logan, a possible future is depicted where a weary older Wolverine has retired from the X-Men, working as a limo driver and caring for an ailing Professor X. But did Wolverine truly find peace in retirement? The answer, as fans well know, is a resounding no. Thanks to Deadpool, Wolverine is set to return to the big screen in Deadpool and Wolverine, and in the comics, he's right back in the thick of it.
With a premier superhero team like the Avengers, there comes a particular set of rules and expectations, and there are a number of heroes who have broken those rules on multiple different occasions and found themselves booted from the team. Moon Knight is arguably one of the coolest Marvel characters. His aesthetic is top-notch. He's dark and gritty, he's basically insane, and he doesn't give a damn what pretty much anyone thinks about him or his methods. He officially joined the West Coast Avengers in Volume 2, number 21, but this was all under the influence of Khonshu, so he left after about 2 years, but then he joined the Avengers proper. While there was a time that he completely burned his Avengers card because of how he handled the situation with Dr. Doom, he did eventually join them again. That is, until the age of Khonshu. When Khonshu became plagued by visions of the end of the world at the hands of an army of demon Mephistos, Moon Knight basically defeated and took the powers of Iron Fist, Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, and Thor, wiped out Mephisto, and gave the powers to Khonshu, who then took over New York City. In response, Mark Spector defeated Khonshu himself using the powers of the Phoenix Force before he cast off the Phoenix when it tried to corrupt him. After that, Mark was pretty much good with not rejoining the Avengers, who didn't help him against Mephisto in the first place, even though they totally offered him his spot back. Elvin Halliday was just a teenager when he was exposed to the classic superhero generator, mysterious toxic chemicals. He was then transformed from a teenager into a pretty powerful adult with incredible strength and durability, and he started going by the name Rage, just as an angsty teenager would. Now, Rage hid his true age when he first met the Avengers during a battle with the Sons of the Serpent, and they invited him to join the team as a probationary member. Obviously, though, you can't really keep something like your age hidden from the Avengers for too long, and they eventually learned of his true age, and he was demoted to a member in training. But you see, Rage had also developed a relationship with the New Warriors. So, when the Warriors asked for his assistance on one of their missions, he helped them out by stealing an Avengers Quinjet. As you can imagine, this cost him his place with the Avengers, but by that point he was pretty much more interested in being a New Warrior. In the comic book universe, Hank Pym and his partner, Janet Van Dyne, were not only heroes in a relationship, but founding members of the Avengers. Their life together was not as seemingly well structured as it appears in the MCU, however, especially when Hank experienced a mental breakdown after being suspended from the team. He accidentally dropped and smashed some vials containing various unknown gases. The released gases gave Pym a radical temporary personality change that was basically a severe case of schizophrenia. He took the new identity of Yellowjacket, kidnapped Van Dyne, and proposed marriage to her, as Pym had long wanted to do so. Realizing that Yellowjacket was actually Hank Pym, Van Dyne decided to play along, fearing that she would worsen his psychological condition if she did otherwise. And their relationship was bad, with Pym feeling like a useless scientist and being jealous of his wife's success as a fashion designer. It all took a disturbing turn when Hank physically struck Janet, highlighting the depths to which he had sunk. Not shrunk, although that would be funny because that's his power. Anyways, while Hank eventually returned to heroism, his behavior and the activation of an evil robot to try and gain back his bad reputation got him court-martialed by the Avengers and booted from the team. Now, the West Coast Avengers may not be the Avengers, but they are Avengers, and they have welcomed quite a few interesting members to the team over the years. Aaron Stack, aka X-51 the Machine Man, was definitely one of the strangest of the bunch. Machine Man became a reserve member of the team who was called in to help hold the fort during the Operation Galactic Storm storyline. While he didn't really work all that much with the team, he still remained a reserve member for quite a few years. Unfortunately though, Machine Man was destroyed and then rebuilt, but this time using advanced Sentinel technology. This Sentinel technology made him turn on the mutant members of the Avengers due to the programming of Master Mold within his new body. With this attack, coupled with the fact that there wasn't really much they could do, all they could do was terminate his reserve member status. Sorry. The hero Novar is a Kree from the alternate reality of Earth 200080, and I'm going to be completely honest here, he is strange. This Kree had his DNA altered with the genes of a cockroach, and they also gave him nanobiology, which also gave him a whole bunch of cool abilities. He has spent a good amount of time with the Young Avengers while he was running around as Marvel Boy, and then he briefly worked with the Dark Avengers until he learned that they were the Dark Avengers and were really just a bunch of villains playing heroes. He did finally join the main team of Avengers with the new identity of Protector. Protector got a new costume and a powerful pair of negabands by the Kree Supreme Intelligence. He helped during the team's battle with the Hood. However, after all of that, all the time that he put in, now that he was finally on the Avengers proper, he completely turned on them for the Kree during Avengers vs. X-Men, which led to him obviously being kicked off the team again. The Incredible Hulk has had a long and pretty inconsistent relationship with the Avengers. As most people know, he was one of the founding members, but he quit the team in the second issue because they didn't trust him. Since then, he has worked with the team, been on other sub-teams, and he has obviously fought against them on multiple occasions. In Avengers Assemble Volume 2, the Hulk came into conflict with Aquarius of the Zodiac, and he teamed up with the Avengers, but decided to stick with his heroic buds to face that villain and then Thanos, and then the Phoenix Five during Avengers vs. X-Men. Officially returning to their ranks in Avengers Volume 5, the team was now dealing with the potential end of literally everything thanks to the Incursions. Despite his past with them, Hulk eventually joined up with the Illuminati, helping them to find a solution to the Incursions, which included completely decimating other worlds. Once the Illuminati's actions were revealed to the rest of the world, the group had to go on the run from everyone, including the Avengers. Va-Ni Gast was the daughter of the Grand Master, one of the Elders of the Universe. She grew up exploring the cosmos by her father's side. When her father's title was threatened, she was granted teleportation powers that also had the added benefit of being able to alter people's memories. Va-Ni took up the hero name Voyager and headed to Earth. Now Voyager met up with the Avengers and used her powers to insert herself into their memories as Valerie Vector, a founding member of the team who had bit the dust in the battle against the Squadron Sinister, which had removed her from existence and from everyone's memory. Luckily, the Avengers' longtime butler, Edwin Jarvis, had collapsed due to an illness shortly before Voyager's arrival. So, naturally, when Voyager arrived at the hospital Jarvis had just woken up in, he exposed the truth that Voyager had never actually been an Avenger. While this obviously didn't do her any favors, and she was pretty much booted from the team, she did admit that this was all the plan of her father, while she was actually inspired by the heroes and helped the Avengers to save the day in the end. Now before Carol Danvers finally took on the role of Captain Marvel, she had gone through a whole cacophony of other names since starting her superhero career as Miss Marvel. For a while she went out into space and was calling herself Binary, and then when she came back and joined up with the Avengers again, she took on the super cool, super edgy name of Warbird. Now Carol was really going through a tough time at this point as she had gone through a huge reduction in her power. That, coupled with a few other factors, had led Carol to having a bit of a problem when it came to drinking. Tony Stark is not the only one to struggle with it. Now, in response, the Avengers gathered together to try and formally deal with the issue of Carol's problem, which had started to affect her duties as a hero and an Avenger. This led to a vote, but when that vote began to turn against her, instead of just facing it, Carol decided to just quit before she could be officially kicked out. She literally pulled a "you can't fire me because I quit." Luckily, this did push her to seek help for her addiction, and she would later return. The Scarlet Witch's career as a hero has been troubled, to say the least, mostly due to her unstable mental health. Despite the fact that Wanda's psychological issues have wreaked havoc across the Marvel Universe, she has been a vital part of the team since joining in 1965. But she was also a huge reason the team completely disassembled in Avengers Disassembled. Anyways, to keep a long-ish story short, Wanda and the Wasp were just chilling by the pool when Wasp decided to mention Wanda's kids. But the existence of her children had been wiped from her memory, and when Wasp brought it up, it brought all those memories flooding back, and Wanda absolutely lost it. Several things happened next. For starters, Scott Lang Ant-Man lost his life when a previously deceased Jack of Hearts just showed up and detonated, and while the heroes were trying to figure out what just happened, Vision showed up as well, saying that he was not in control of himself and that he is sorry, as he also began to detonate. And then Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk, began to get uncharacteristically raged and tore Vision in half. Next, we saw Tony Stark at a UN conference randomly start to act as though he was incredibly intoxicated even though he hadn't had a single drink, and he threatened the Latvian ambassador, and then a whole invasion by the Kree just randomly came out of nowhere, resulting in the passing of Hawkeye. And then the Kree just randomly left as quickly as they showed up. All of that was actually Wanda Maximoff using her reality warping magic, and obviously that didn't go well. And finally, there is pretty much no other Avenger who represents the team more than Steve Rogers, Captain America. He has led and/or handpicked the members of almost every incarnation of the team, and their key slogan, Avengers Assemble, is like his thing. He represents everything that superheroes stand for, always fighting for the world as it should be rather than how it is. But funnily enough, this has pitted him not only against the government, but even the Avengers themselves. Now, while you could say Civil War split the heroes into two different Avengers teams, technically Iron Man's side was the official team, and when Cap opposed the Registration Act, he basically booted himself out from the team. Sure, he would just create his own Avengers team because Cap will always be an Avenger even when he's technically not an Avenger, but he was not technically one for a hot minute after this event. I feel like this is gonna get me in trouble from you guys, so let me know your thoughts down below.
So many mutants dream of even getting a place on the team, fighting hard to earn that place, and these folks just up and quit? Why? Beast left the X-Men pretty early on to become a scientist. Fun fact, however, he would return after he ingested a serum that isolated a hormonal extract. The original intent for the serum, which he made, being to allow anyone to become a mutant for a short period. When Hank took the serum to protect it from basically being stolen, it increased his mutation significantly, accelerating its evolution and resulting in a secondary mutation manifesting for Hank. This mutation caused him to grow fur and become beast-like in not just his name, but also his appearance. Due to him missing the window to take the antidote and reverse this secondary mutation, he became stuck like this permanently and would eventually return to the X-Men team, and would also later go on to become an Avenger as well. If there was any team that you could put any X-Men on, or that you'd want to see them like sort of join up with, what team would it be? Let me know in the comments. Personally, I feel like although the Avengers and X-Men have fought each other, I'd love to see them team up. Banshee, of course, is a mutant, and being a mutant is usually a pretty crucial component when it comes to who gets to be an X-Men. I mean, there are other qualifications of course, and not all members have been mutants, but for the most part this is usually commonplace and even key to earning a spot on the team. So what happens when a mutant becomes depowered? Well, this is exactly what happened with Sean Cassidy when he decided, and honestly it was kind of forced, to leave the team. I mean, no one specifically made him leave, but the fact that he no longer had superpowers made it challenging, nigh impossible, for him to stay on the team as an active member. Banshee ended up damaging his vocal cords in a fight so badly that he was no longer able to use his powers at that time. This, combined with him realizing that he wanted to prioritize his romance with Dr. Moira McTaggart, ultimately made him choose to retire from the X-Men, at least for a while. Sunfire also briefly joined the X-Men, but only for one mission, at least to start. He was offered a more permanent place on the team, but ultimately decided just to decline that. This is because while Sunfire is a mutant and has been a more steadfast X-Men member before in the comics, his ultimate loyalty, at least at that time, and in my opinion also just I would say overall, is to his country. Sunfire is from Japan, and so he decided to focus on being a hero for his country as opposed to joining the X-Men team. A global team, for sure, but also a team who are usually, you know, based in the US. Kinda makes sense. Angel once decided to leave the team because he was simply too angsty to rejoin. He's like, I'm too moody right now, I can't do it. Granted, this was also after he had kinda already left the team because he was busy working for Apocalypse as one of his 4 horsemen and, you know, being evil and being a villain. But even after he was redeemed, Warren found the transformation he'd undergone was just simply too much, and he ultimately refused to join back with his teammates. That's the part where he was like, not gonna do this. Instead, he became more of a moody, misunderstood, kinda lone wolf who did not blend in quite as well as he'd done previously with humankind due to his new appearance, and some would say his personality being dramatically altered as well. This was a time I think when they were really trying to make Angel cool again. He took up the mantle of Death and Dark Angel for a time, see what I mean, trying to make him cool again, before ultimately settling on Archangel. However, he would, once he was Archangel, eventually return and join back up with the new team X-Factor, which was made up of the original X-Men roster, pretty much. Many mutants leave the X-Men for various reasons, although many have left for sometimes the same purpose, to find themselves. Being part of a team can make it sometimes harder to know exactly what it is you specifically want out of life, and so there have often been teammates who have split off for a while to figure out what exactly they do want out of life. Among the good number of mutants who have done this is X-23. Laura Kinney had a hard life, and although the X-Men welcomed her in like a family, there was a time after she literally went to hell and back and connected with her soul, seriously a thing that happened, when she began to question her place on the X-Men team and wonder if this is exactly where she was meant to be or what she wanted to be doing. During her time away from the X-Men, she'd find another place among the Avengers, joining up with Avengers Academy for a time. At one point, Storm left the X-Men to basically become the Queen of Wakanda. Well, in a more roundabout way. There's a bit more to the story than that. Not intentionally, she didn't leave because she's like, I gotta go be the queen. But that is kind of what ended up happening through her more time away from the team. She initially left following M-Day to return to Africa, where she hoped to make a difference by protecting mutants who had recently been depowered there. This was also at a time when Storm was kind of in that romance with Black Panther. Arriving back in Africa, she would track down a man hunting depowered mutants who she would learn was actually her uncle. This would lead to her meeting her grandmother, and with these new familial connections kind of inspiring her in some ways, Storm agreed to accept T'Challa's marriage proposal and would ultimately become the Queen of Wakanda. While Black Panther and Storm are a much beloved and shipped couple among comic book fans, Storm's marriage would not stand the test of time, and eventually the Avengers vs. X-Men conflict would actually drive a massive wedge between these two, with Storm siding with the X-Men while Black Panther sided with the Avengers. This was also an issue because Namor was also on the X-Men's side as a mutant and also ended up becoming one of the Phoenix Five, making the conflict between T'Challa and Aurora even more complicated. And if you don't know why, it's because Wakanda and Atlantis, they don't really get along, to put it lightly. Guess what? Carol Danvers, now known as Captain Marvel in the comics, was once an honorary X-Men member. What brought her to the team? She went to them for help after Rogue accidentally absorbed too much of Carol's life energy. Well, Rogue had meant to attack Carol, to be clear, but she had not meant to do as much damage to Carol as was done. Carol lost much of her memories from this attack and her powers, and was taken to Professor X to get some help. During this time, she would fight alongside the X-Men and become an honorary member, and it was during their space adventures where she would actually also end up unlocking her full cosmic potential, tapping into an unlimited amount of energy when the Brood, who had kidnapped the team, experimented on Carol. With new powers unlocked, Carol became known as the hero binary for a while. The X-Men wanted her to join them in a more official capacity, but Carol was actually more interested in using her powers to go on amazing space adventures and explore the stars. Fair enough. Eventually, Rogue would also be welcomed onto the X-Men team, and this would also cause Carol to leave more permanently, instead deciding to venture off with the more cosmic Starjammers. As wild as it might sound, Kitty Pryde once left the X-Men team to go off and also have some space adventures with her then beau, Star-Lord, aka Peter Quill. Kitty would even take Peter's place on the Guardians of the Galaxy team for a while, filling in for him as Star-Lord, and the two were even engaged for a time. Obviously, it didn't end up working out, but hey, it was a time where she got to go off and also have her own space adventures. Who doesn't love to have space adventures, you know what I mean? Stacy X was part of the team during a weird time in their history, a very weird time. In fact, her reasoning for joining up and even leaving both feel pretty disconnected for me, I gotta say. Stacy X is a mutant who uses her powers to bring people pleasure, working at a place that was known as the X Ranch, and I'll let you fill in some of those blanks. She can use her power to manipulate a person's pheromones to do this, just to be clear. After the X Ranch was attacked and destroyed by those who hate mutants, Stacy ended up joining the X-Men team. She didn't last long though. She left because she didn't much enjoy having to work with a team, even though, you know, that's kind of the whole point, joining a team, and possibly because of her unrequited crush on Archangel. She left, and she also left Warren with a video recording of her jumping rope in the buff. That's the thing that happened. The fact that this next member of the team even came back is more controversial, I think, than when he first left. We are talking about Cyclops, and this bit of his history we're about to cover is not very pretty. Cyclops fans, prepare yourselves. Cover your ears, cover your eyes. We're going to the place where Cyclops is kind of a jerky jerk. Cyc initially left the X-Men to settle down with his wife Madeline Pryor after the two were wed. Despite leaving the team, however, Cyclops would always consider himself, of course, an X-Men, and the couple even sent Professor X a weirdly intimate picture of them sitting in bed together under the covers when they were on their honeymoon. It's very strange. When it was revealed that Jean had not actually died though during the Dark Phoenix saga, Cyclops decided to return to the team, even though Maddie and Scott had just welcomed in their newborn son to the family. Yeah. Yikes. Abandoning his family would also be an inciting incident, which would inevitably lead us to the events of Inferno.